enjoy.
Yeah,
Awesome.
thanks
Well,
so much for the warm introduction.
yeah, and welcome everybody again. And big thank you to Stetson for having us.
Yeah.
And today we are going to share our seminar on how to launch a successful freelance career and live like us as digital nomads.
Yeah, and we want to start, obviously, the timing probably isn't perfect to, be a digital nomad given the current climate. But, we're hopefully optimistic that, things will get back to a semi-normal sooner than later. And so, some of these tips I wouldn't say go rush out to be it right away, but, hopefully you can back pocket them and they'll come in handy someday.
Yeah, so to start off, we would love to share a little bit more about our story. And I'll let Jake kick it off and tell you a little bit more about what he does, and then I'll dive in after.
Yeah, so I graduated from Stetson University in 2011. I was a finance major and I minored in business law and entrepreneurship. When I graduated, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I knew it wasn't finance, so I got a job as basically a sales position for a marketing agency in Orlando. And I quickly fell in love with that world as opposed to kind of the finiteness of finance. And fast forward a few years, we moved to LA, and I started working for a startup that was later acquired by Dun and Bradstreet or D&B as I was the lead copywriter for our in-house creative team. And in that role, I worked with a lot of very large businesses from Bank of America, LegalZoom, Alibaba, and I quickly, eventually got to the point where I was able to leave that role, but still work with them at a freelance position, and then start my own business and attract new clients through word of mouth and other tools I'll go over with later. And a few fun facts about me: I love tacos. I love basketball. I doodle on literally everything. No piece of paper is safe. And my favorite city that we stationed as a digital nomad was Lisbon, Portugal.
Awesome. And hi, everyone. My name is Carly. I graduated from Stetson in 2010. I majored in communications, and my minor was in fine art and French. I also, like Jake, was not sure what I wanted to do right after I graduated. And I ended up taking a few different roles in boutique PR and advertising agencies in Orlando and then later in Los Angeles. During my 9 to 5 career, I was finding that I had this other passion for photography and for travel. And so on the weekends, on the nights, anytime that I wasn't working my 9 to 5 job, I was taking photographs because I loved it. And I got to a place where now, 4 years ago, I started my own freelance photography business. And I have had the opportunity to photograph stories for Condé Nast Magazine, National Geographic, Afar Magazine, Lonely Planet. I've worked with some incredible brands all around the world, including Land Rover, Madewell, Airbnb, Delta, and some of my more passionate brands, which are kind of these smaller, more boutique travel and hospitality companies. I really positioned myself as an expert in the travel industry and am now offering my consulting services as well. And a few fun facts about me: I grew up in Maine. I have a dream of starting my own boutique hotel. And my favorite country that we ever visited was Sri Lanka. So, without further ado, we are going to dive into our 5-point plan on how to launch a successful freelance career.
Yeah, and these are kind of high level. We just want to, because, there's different types of freelance careers you can do, whether it's, you working for a few clients or kind of producing your own work and publishing that within your house. So we wanted to kind of try to touch on all bases. And our rough, quick and dirty 5-point plan is: find your why, set your goals and intentions, create a big body of work, identify your audience and build your tribe, and then know your worth and take risks.
So, first up, finding your why. Knowing your why is an important first step in figuring out how to achieve the goals that excite you and create a life you enjoy living. So, why do you want to be a writer? Why do you want to be a photographer? Why do you want to, let me go back to some of these, jobs and majors you said, why do you want to get into child therapy? Why are you studying digital arts? Why do you
English major.
yeah, English
right,
major. Why do you want to be a writer, an editor, international business? Why do you want to go into international business? And there's 4 key questions that I think help people find their why, and I'm going to share them with you here. So ask yourself these questions. What makes you come alive? What are your innate strengths? Where do you add the greatest value? And how will you measure your life? So think about those 4 questions when you're trying to define your why. And for me, for example, my personal why is to, or how I answer that is to uplift and inspire people to see beauty in our world. And this is something that you can always revisit, revise, but I think it's an important first step to take in launching your freelance career.
Yeah, and another part of the piece of the puzzle to why is, figure out why you want to be a freelancer. Because, in a lot of ways, you're going to be wearing a lot of hats. There's a lot more structure to a typical office or a role within a company. You don't have to be the accountant. You don't have to be the salesperson. You don't have to be, essentially wear all these different hats day to day. So, is it freedom you want? Is it money? Is it to work on what is you're most passionate about? Really kind of nail down why you want to do this route and what it is you want to do with it.
Yeah. So the next step is setting your goals and intentions. So once you're kind of crystal clear on your why, it's time to start thinking about specific goals and intentions that you have for your freelance career. So first, the first step to setting your goals is defining your goals. What goals are going to help you stay on track. So I want you to think of specific things, and I want you to give yourself a timeline. So define those goals, and then the next step is kind of visualizing and manifesting your dreams. And something that's been really helpful for me is creating vision boards. And this, vision boards can mean a lot of different things to people, but for me, I will take a poster board and I'll cut out the cover of Condé Nast Traveler and put it on the poster board with my image on the front of it. And I'll pin up, different brands that I want to work with. So your vision board is, different things that you want to see come to life. And I think it's a great exercise for everybody to do. However it, makes sense for you. And I think it helps you, in my office, I look at it every single day. And I think it helps you kind of manifest those dreams.
Mm-hmm. And also too, your goals are more likely to come true if you share them with others. Let it be what it is you want to do. And I think a lot of us, when we do just set goals, we, oh, I want $1 million. Oh, I want a house on a beach. Oh, I want, the big bang right away. But, you have to realize start small, like, especially if you're just getting out and launching your career, set kind of the small goals first and then create like a concrete plan of how to get to those goals. So, start small and just know you got to build your own ladder. So, it's good to have your eye on the big prize, but know that it's going to be a bit of a curve and a bit of a mountain to climb to get there. So, be concrete, specific, and the most important thing with your goals is give yourself deadlines. Because it's easy to say, oh, I'll get to that tomorrow, or oh, I can work on that next week, because time, you have unlimited, or as much as you need when you're your own boss essentially. So set your goals, be concrete, and give yourself deadlines.
Yeah, and this leads us, after you've taken time to define your why and create your goals, it's time to start doing and creating a lot of work. And this leads us to a great quote that I heard early on in my career that has stuck with me. And we're going to pull up my screen and share this little video with you where you will be able to see the quote. So give me a second.
And this is from Ira Glass. He's a radio host personality. Yeah, maybe some of you are familiar.
tells people who are beginners, and I really wish somebody had told this to me, is that all of us who do creative work, like, we get into it, and we get into it because we have good days. But it's like there's a gap that for the first couple of years that you're making stuff, what you're making isn't so good. Okay, it's not that great. It's trying to be good. It has ambition to be good, but it's not that good. But your taste, the thing about going to the game, your taste is still killer, and your taste is good enough that you can tell that what you're making is kind of a disappointment to you. You know what I mean? A lot of people never get past that phase. A lot of people at that point, they quit. And the thing I would just like say to you with all my heart is that most everybody I know who does interesting creative work, they went through a phase of years where they had really good, they could tell what they were making wasn't as good as they wanted it to be. They knew it felt short. It didn't have this special thing that we wanted it to have. And the thing I would say to you is everybody goes through that. And for you to go through it, if you're going through it right now, if you're just getting out of that phase, you got to know it's totally normal. And the most important possible thing you can do is do a lot of work. Do a huge volume of work. Put yourself on a deadline so that every week or every month you know you're going to finish one story. Because it's only by actually going through a volume of work that you're actually going to catch up and close that gap. And the work you're making will be as good as your ambitions. It takes a while. It's going to take you a while. It's normal to take a while, and you just have to fight your way through that. Okay?
So we love that quote, and we think it's a great way for you to kind of wrap your head around creating a body of work and realizing that, starting out, it might not be work that you love, but by doing a lot of it, you'll get better. And I'm just pulling up our screen again. So creating a body of work. We talked about defining your why, defining your goals, and now you're ready to create a body of work and share it. So start with building a portfolio. Whether you're interested in starting a career as a freelance writer, a photographer, a marketing specialist, a developer, you'll need to create a portfolio of work to show people what you do and potential clients what you do. When I was first starting out, one thing that worked really well for me was approaching small businesses or nonprofits, nonprofit companies, and offering my photography services on a pro bono basis. It was a great way for me to start out and start building up my portfolio. So I would implore you to look at companies, small businesses or nonprofits that maybe you're passionate about and offer your services to them, in exchange for that experience.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Because the process you'll probably go through with even the smaller clients or the number that will be the same largely throughout, your career. So just kind of, getting your hands dirty, if you will, and, diving in is really the best way. And one thing I would implore you is don't get hung up on the small stuff of saying, oh, I need to get my website perfect. Oh, I need to get, this perfect. Like you really don't. You really just need to kind of just start doing, and you'll find that, fortune favors the bold, and you'll kind of, you'll fill in those gaps as you're going and as you're doing more work and as people are referring you to others. So, and that kind of falls into the law of attraction as well, which,
yeah, I think it's important to note that, as you're putting this work out there, be conscious of, the work you put out is what you're going to attract. So for me, I really wanted to become a travel photographer. So I made a point to do pro bono work in the travel space and share travel photography. And in turn, I attracted a lot of travel industry clients. If I was sharing photos of food photography, then I would probably attract more clients in the food space. If you are in Jake's position, share work that is related to the types of clients you want to get. I remember he worked on a spec script for Modern Family, so he, was putting out work that he wanted to attract. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, if you're, kind of, and don't get discouraged if you kind of fall into a silo. You're still able to do similar things within that arena, but just don't get too worried if you're, if you're going down a path you think that, wait a sec, I'm not sure if I want to do this. I'd rather be doing, more. For Carley, she was doing a lot of product photography, and she was like, I don't really know if that's what I want to be doing long term. So she kind of switched hats a little bit to do more travel, more hotels. And then by doing that, those type of clients started coming more and more as opposed to certain brands and product photography shoots. So
yeah, and don't forget to share your work. Once you've created and built up this portfolio, think about where you're going to share it. Think about, are you creating a website for people that is, functioning as your kind of digital business card, and you can have your portfolio and contact information for people to find you there? Are you, utilizing social media? Like for me, Instagram is a great tool for me to be able to share my photography work. Think about what different platforms are out there for you to share your portfolio on. For Jake, I know Upwork and different.
Medium's a great resource for writers or anyone, any field. You can just kind of show your expertise in a field. So there's a bunch of different ways to share your work, and it'd be good to, that kind of leads into our next slide here, which is to identify your audience and build your tribe. So one of the first things we do kind of as a marketer, as a copywriter with a new ask is like identify your target market, right? Who are we trying to sell our services to, or what audience do we want to engage with? And I think that's a really important first step in kind of attracting clients, because then all right, I'm going after the Joe Staleys, which are 25 to 35, they're techies, they're, this and that. Just really kind of create a persona for that target market, and then figure out how you can provide value to them. And through doing that, you'll, be able to attract more Joe Staleys and, hopefully provide more value.
Yeah, and I would again point out leveraging social, web, and email to, to build your tribe and find your audience. So for me, like I said earlier, Instagram's been a great tool for me. It's also to share my portfolio. It's also been a great tool for me to build my tribe and build this, database of potential clients. I think, your website is another great place where you can have an e-newsletter sign up. You can collect emails there. So think about, how you can leverage social, web, and email to build your tribe. And I think, like Jake mentioned earlier, as you're defining kind of your target market and who you're going after, the types of people that are most likely going to be your clients and customers, think about what value you provide them, and that's what's going to keep them coming back. So I think that's important to bring up too.
Yeah, and just the digital guest book was kind of a, if you, rewind to 15 years ago before the web, every store would have like a guest book where you'd sign your email, their name, maybe an address, and I think that's very important, because by having these people, you continue to share with them and continue to stay top of mind for when they would need someone who is offering your services. So I think it's important to find out where your target market is and be active there and really engage with that audience.
Yeah. So just to sum up and keep everybody in line with where we're at. So number 1 was define your why. Number 2, define your goals. Number 3, create a body of work. Number 4, identify your audience and build your tribe. And this brings us to the last step, which is know your worth and take risks. So don't sell yourself short. As you continue to grow and gain experience, make sure you're raising your prices. This is something that's been a challenge for me and something that I'm working on. But if you were working a typical 9-to-5 job, usually, if you're doing a great job, a year goes by, you're probably going to get some sort of promotion. So if you're your own boss, don't forget to give yourself a promotion.
Totally.
and raise your prices, because I think that's the only way you're really going to be successful is, knowing your worth, raising your prices as you continue to get better and gain experience. And yeah, I think that's
Definitely.
The first point to make there.
And a big part of that too is don't be scared to take creative risks. If you're freelancing, there's technically no right way to, find a new client or do your work. Like there's viral options, but don't be scared to like email a local CEO or go to lunch with someone who's already doing what you want to do. More often than not, I feel like those people in those type positions, unless they're super busy, they're more than happy to, sit down, have a conversation, kind of help steer you in the right direction, maybe tell you a few things to avoid that they did wrong. Another thing you can do, take risks, ask your network, whether it's family ties, and really just don't be scared to put yourself out there. You kind of have to be vulnerable and really just be yourself. And I think that, you'll attract the right types to you. So
yeah, I mean, when I was first starting out, I would, send people, potential customers, messages on Twitter, direct messages on Instagram. I would find them on LinkedIn and find their email, find their website, and just introduce myself and let them know, here's the type of work I do. Here's a link to my body of work on my website where you can see, the type of stuff I do, and I'd love to work together at some point. So let me know if you're interested. And the worst that can happen is they say no. So, 10 times out of 10, you're gonna get somebody to respond. 9 times out of 10.
There it is.
I'm really bad at this.
The other piece is, or just the last thing is, hold yourself accountable. So again, just want to reiterate that in a freelance career, you're essentially your own boss. Sure, clients will have deadlines for you, but for those, days where maybe you don't have things that you technically have to do, you should still try to, do something, or treat it like, all right, this is my job. Like, I'm going to get up and I'm going to take a class, or I'm going to get better at this, or I'm going to, make this piece of the pie better. Just really hold yourself accountable and treat yourself as a professional. Once you really decide to do it, you go from being an amateur to a pro. And, you're going to probably be this amateur, or not an amateur, but, you're going to, hit a few speed bumps before you get to that pro level. But by holding yourself accountable, you'll get there sooner than later.
Yeah, I think self-discipline is key. And we put this quote here, freelancers are free because they take risks. They don't like being told what to do. That's both exciting and daunting because you have to police you. So yeah, I'm sure as many of you are adjusting to this new kind of temporary normal, you're finding out that you have to have a lot of self-discipline to take your classes online, to, work remotely. So you're getting a taste of essentially what we do and have been doing for the last 4 years. So yeah, I think that's it for that one. And so that section, remember, define your why, define your goals, define your target audience. Number 4 is
build portfolio. Know your worth and take risks.
Yeah,
we can revisit it. But so yeah, and that kind of like directs us to the next phase of the presentation, which is now that you know or can work from anywhere and live anywhere, you could try your hand at being a digital nomad, which is kind of what we decided to do 3 years ago when we packed up everything in LA and just went for it.
Yeah.
So start us off with.
Yeah, so Jake and I have lived and worked in, I want to say, over 30 different countries and destinations over the past 3 years in places like Bali, Portugal, Morocco, Nicaragua, Sri Lanka.
Southeast Asia is a big one.
Yeah.
There for a while.
And kind of existing outside of the normal structures of society and choosing where and how to work. It's extremely freeing, but it is challenging. And before we dive in too much, we just, wanted to put this definition up here for everyone to understand, what is a digital nomad? It's these remote workers who live and work from anywhere. And it's, over the last few years, more and more digital nomads have been popping up.
Yeah, and it's, essentially a fancy word for homeless, which, it doesn't sound like it's not all rainbows and butterflies the whole time. It's a bit of a roller coaster where at times you're like, this is such a great spot, I could be here for months. And then other times you're kind of spread thin, whether it be jobs or, 2 days here, 3 days there. So, it's a lot of work at times to plan. Depending on the route you take, you could take a much more relaxed schedule, which is maybe 3 months at a time or a month at a time here, as opposed to, going somewhere. Oh, I love that, Vicky. The earth is our home. You're right. So, and that's essentially what a digital nomad, says is like, my home is where I lay my head. So, but it has its pros and cons. But so, doing it for 3 years, we kind of learned a lot along the way, and we just share, a couple tips to kind of help you do it the right way and not burn yourself out or run into problems down the road.
Yeah,
So,
and I think we can't go without saying, the current state of the world is pretty crazy. It's not ideal for, jumping around from city to city or country to country right now. But one thing I do want to point out is that, a lot of my friends are working 9-to-5 jobs in New York City, in Orlando, and during this whole pandemic, they've been forced to work from home, and their employers are realizing, how well they can work from home. So I think that the world is realizing that maybe we don't have to sit in an office from 9 to 5 anymore. Maybe this digital nomad lifestyle is kind of the way of the future. And so we've got an early taste of it, but I do think that, once things calm down, I think that this type of lifestyle and work lifestyle is going to pick back up again.
Yeah. At least less days in the office. It just kind of shows the flexibility. Like, our tools and technology is, so different from 20 years ago. So we can work anywhere with a laptop and Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
So I think, if anything, this has kind of progressed those tools being made, and kind of like a test run of how it could work in the future. So, so right now it may seem kind of grim and weary, but fast forward, we might be even in a better role to be a digital nomad, given kind of this test phase we're all in.
Yeah.
So,
so after 3 years of living on the road as digital nomads, we've learned the ins and outs and faced a lot of challenges. So we put together 3 tips on how to live as a digital nomad and not go crazy. It's also a challenge being a digital nomad with your husband or your significant other. So there's, a lot of good times, a lot of crazy times, but essentially we've narrowed it down to 3 tips on how you can live this lifestyle. Number 1 being budget and plan. Number 2, creating a work-life balance. And number 3, joining a community. So to dive right in here, step number 1, or tip number 1, making a budget and a plan. So living as a digital nomad, you have this newfound flexibility with your life now. So we encourage you to embrace that flexibility, and that will help you in creating your budget. For example, for us, we don't necessarily have to fly on weekends or wait for vacation days when everybody else is traveling. We can fly midweek. We can travel to destinations in their off seasons, and that will save you a lot of money. So when you're thinking about your budget and your plan, think about this new flexibility you have and use it to your advantage.
Definitely. So, you can save, and also just different places, your dollar will go a lot further than it would in others. For instance, in Chiang Mai, you can get a beautiful apartment for probably, around $700 or $800, and cheap meals. So really, you can kind of have those as, I guess, fallbacks. If you're, maybe times are getting tight, I can go there, or really just factor that into where you're going.
There's definitely cities that are more conducive to digital nomad lifestyle, and you can do a quick search on Google, and there's a lot of resources out there.
Tons of resources.
We've lived in Bali, we've lived in Lisbon, and in Chiang Mai. Those 3 cities have been really conducive to the digital nomad lifestyle. So that kind of leads us into doing your homework. Do a lot of research and figure out when you want to travel, where you want to travel, and if it's safe to travel. So we have these kind of pro resources at the bottom here. So one site that we always check is the travel.state.gov site, and that will give you the travel advisory warnings for any place you're looking to travel to. So do your homework, look at sites like that. Use another great site that we use for booking travel is Skyscanner, and this other one, Kiwi.com. They allow you to be really flexible with your travel schedule. So for example, you could just put in, if we had to get to Barcelona and we knew we were going to be in Los Angeles, these sites both let you kind of find the cheapest route to get there. It might not be the most direct. You might have to fly to London or fly to Paris first, but you'll get there. And if you have this time flexibility, it's going to help you with your budget.
Yeah, and at times you can even use this like a pit stop where, we've done that a lot, where we're slowly making our way to, let's say, Barcelona. But it's cheap to get to London, so we did London, and then it was cheap to get to Paris, and then from there was a $20 flight to Barcelona. So, by kind of having that flexibility and that time freedom, you can, figure out not the quickest way to get there, but maybe, the scenic route, if you will.
Yeah.
And a quick thing too, I just want to add about do your homework is make sure you have your visas and your vaccines figured out, because a lot of places, you might need that, or you might run out of a visa, and you don't want to find yourself in trouble for being somewhere too long or not having a vaccine and getting really sick. Normally it's not a huge deal, but just make sure that if you are going to be somewhere you're vulnerable, that you're, you're checked out. So
yeah. And when you are a freelancer, you're wearing every single hat that you could wear. So one of those is your accountant and your financial advisor. So think about your savings. And for us, before we left and started living this digital nomad lifestyle, we had saved up 3 months of savings that we knew would get us.
And we had ongoing work still coming in as well, just as it wasn't like, all right, we're ready. It was a pretty steady business at the time as well. So
have some savings ready, and it'll be a lot less stressful. Some other tools for more of the budget side of things. QuickBooks is a great resource to kind of track your bookkeeping. Another great accounting tool is bench.co. So those are on the screen there for you to write down and keep in mind. There's a ton of resources out there. These are just ones that we've used and have been,
There's also, Cash App is pretty great. Transfer wise, if you're working with international currencies, it's much more efficient, and the rates are way better than PayPal. So that's another one great if you're doing international work.
Yeah. So this leads us to our next tip for living a digital nomad lifestyle, which is establishing your work-life balance. Think about when you're most productive. So for me, and you guys are probably already having to do this, with this current kind of state of things, or just even without the current state of things. You're always thinking about when you're most productive.
I'm a morning person. Carley's
I work better at night. So another, component to living as a digital nomad is that you may not always have the same office space to work from. So think about, are you more conducive to working in coffee shops? Does that environment inspire you? Do you want to work in lobbies of hotels? We've done all of these. Are you renting out an Airbnb for a month? Do you have a good space in there?
That's a great tip. If you are going to be somewhere pretty long term and you do want to have just make sure there's a good workspace. And there's been times where we'd have a studio and it's like a tiny high top chair that's super uncomfortable and a glass table that's tiny. So make sure you have if you do want a good home office, make sure that that's available to you.
Yeah, and then just to make the point about this work-life balance, create boundaries for yourself. You have to, when you're your own boss, it's often hard to shut off and to, stop working sometimes. I definitely work harder now as a freelancer than I did when I, was employed by a different company. So you still have to give yourself a break. Definitely. And when you're mixing your work and your life, the same table that you have breakfast from, you might work from. So I would encourage try to create these boundaries in separate areas where you're doing different things.
Also, and if you're, someplace new, you're going to have FOMO every day. You just got to know that, I'm in this incredible place. There's so many things to see and do, but I have to get this work done and I want to do a good job. So it's kind of a constant struggle. And I think if you do create these boundaries of, all right, I'm working from this time and then I'm going to go enjoy, the city I'm in and meet the people and experience the culture, the food, the wine, and, just really kind of give those boundaries to yourself to kind of not drive yourself crazy.
Yeah, a lot of people think that we just live on vacation.
Exactly, but
and we are so fortunate and we love what we do, but it's not vacation every day. Right. There's, been times when we've been traveling and visiting a new city, and I, would love to play tourist in the city and go see all the sights, but I'm stuck in my hotel or my Airbnb working from my bed or whatever that is. So just be mindful of that too. And some pro resources that we have for establishing your work-life balance. The Insight Timer app is a meditation app. Jake and I both have had a lot of success through meditation. It helps us keep our minds clear. It helps keep us calm. It's a great way to start the day in the morning. So that's a great app for you to try out. there's a method called the Pomodoro method. It's essentially this productivity method where you set a timer and focus on one task for a certain amount of time, take a break, and then focus on the other task. It keeps you accountable. And
yeah, and similar with the Pomodoro, there's something called the Scrum method, which is largely used for programmers and developers. But if you have a larger task, you can kind of break it down into, bite-sized actionable tasks. And I find if you do that with Pomodoro, it's great. And that was called the Scrum method.
Yeah, yeah, because you don't have, a boss telling you what
Right.
your to-dos
So
are
you're
for
your
the
project
day.
manager, and you need to, it helps to whittle it down.
Yeah, and then this last website, andco.life, is a website. It's actually, it's only currently available in London, but I think that it will be rolling out worldwide. And essentially, you can create an account and find out what coffee shops, what hotels, what restaurants have tables and Wi-Fi for you to work from, and you can reserve a space in those places so that you're not, walking into a coffee shop with no
It's
tables
crowded,
available.
mobbed. New York, you run into that problem a lot. And we were in London for like 3 months, so we found it useful.
Yeah, so that's a fun tip and tool that I think we'll start seeing more of those popping up as this lifestyle becomes more and more popular. And then our final tip for living as a digital nomad is to join a community and remember not to be shy. People are looking for a connection.
Especially when traveling, most people, their travel memories involve other people. It's where I met this crazy guy at a bar, or, whatever it may be. But so people are looking for connection. And if you're out there, like, give them the connection. Just a simple, hey, where are you from, could just lead to, you never know. So don't be shy.
Yeah, and there's so many great resources for you to connect with other expats if you're living a digital nomad lifestyle abroad, or connect with other digital nomads. Look for Facebook or Reddit groups. There's also this new kind of great co-working and co-living community out there. That's been another great place that we've found other like-minded digital nomads and join those communities. I put those in the box below.
Yeah, so Outside is a really great one. They essentially have these houses in all these cities, and they rent out the rooms to individual people. So I think there's 3 in LA, and when we go back there, we'll stay at them sometimes. And the people staying there are all like-minded, entrepreneurial, living this lifestyle, working on something cool 9 times out of 10. So we've met a lot of great friends and just bounced ideas off each other. And especially if you're solo, I couldn't recommend it more. And hopefully, I'm not sure what their status is now, but it'll be back to semi-normal soon. So.
Yeah, and Rome.co and Common are also co-living, co-working communities. These co-living spaces are also a great way to save money. If you want to live in London or New York or LA, those are expensive cities.
For sure.
And these co-living communities all are functioning in those cities. Miami's another one. I think Rome has a house in, and it's cool. It's fun. We've tried a lot of them, and you get
people from all over the place. Like,
yeah.
But Budapest. I mean, they're just crawling with diversity and really awesome spots.
Yeah, so you can choose, some of them have private rooms. It's kind of like a glorified hostel. So some of them for professionals. Yeah, so you could choose a private room, bedroom and bathroom, or you could choose a community one, and then you share the living space and the kitchen and that sort of thing. So those have been really, really fun tools for us. So.
And we kind of already touched on this, but like stationing yourself in hubs that are really great and conducive to like the nomad lifestyle. And I guess just off the top, or we kind of went through them, but I've heard Tel Aviv was on our list of one to go to next. So hopefully there. And again, if you just look, or I would recommend online, there's actually a great resource. It's called Hobo with a laptop, and he has a ton of great stuff for digital nomads. It's a great resource. So
yeah, but I mean, once you have created this freelance career for yourself, like we said, you can work from anywhere and live as a digital nomad. So it's an awesome way to live. The world is a little bit unsure right now with a lot of things, but I think that this type of lifestyle will pick back up again. We are hunkered down in Maine at the time. A lot of our jobs were kind of postponed or canceled, but we're staying resourceful, because I think when you work as a freelancer, you're almost more prepared for these types of crises to happen, because you're always having to be adaptable and face, quick, you have to be on your feet. And so I think, we're taking this time to work on some more personal projects, be resourceful, find other ways that we can adapt and change our careers, within, the industry that we're in. So I think we just want to, end on the note that you are the hero of your own story.
Yeah, I went to a writing class when I first moved to LA, all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and ready to take over the world. And, the keynote had a really great note of, what you did today essentially what the hero of your own story would be doing. And I think that's just a valuable piece of information, because when you watch the movies, this is the montage part where the hard work, the boring, the mundane, you have to do that part to get to, where you want to be. So be the hero of your own story each day, and eventually you'll, come out on top, I guess. So
yeah, and we just wanted to say thank you again for tuning in here. Please keep in touch. We put our website, and that's my link to social media, Carley's camera, and jakebroselle.com. Feel free to reach out to us. And yes, all the pictures in the PowerPoint are my own. That's always helpful when you don't have to use stock photos. You can just pull your own photos. Thank you, Yasmin. So we want to open it up to Q&A now.
Yep, great. So if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat now. They can be about anything maybe that they touched upon that you have more questions about, something new that you're trying right now, or just any general advice. So drop them in the chat and we'll go from there.
Yeah, and I know, a lot of you have different industries that you're working in. It might not be, a photographer or a writer that you're after, but I think that there's still ways to think of how your role could become a freelance role within your industry, and how, what a digital nomad lifestyle might look like for you. So.
Nice. Glad you guys got some out of it. Yeah. So writing freelancer, that would be, so starting a freelance writer, I would recommend, again, so there's a few different things you can do. I guess I kind of got my break. I made a video kind of about me that was kind of goofy and witty, and I sent it out to a few people, and that kind of got me different interviews. But before I did that, I also basically made what's called a spec portfolio or spec book of work. Which is, let's say you can make a whole campaign for Doritos and do some mock ads, which is like pretend you were hired by Doritos to do a magazine ad or some social media content. And if you can kind of make it like more strategy of how it has legs, and what I mean by that is, don't make it like just here's an email idea, like what's a campaign idea that could maybe work on social and work on their site. So definitely create like a spec book of work. And one other thing, and it's going to start kind of starting out, but like Fiverr or some of those where they don't really pay that well, you'll at least get some experience and be able to add to your actual portfolio. So I would say Fiverr and Upwork is the other one where, just get on there and just do the work, and you'll feel undervalued at first, but once you start creating that book of work and getting a better feel for things, I think you'll be able to take it to the next level and get actual clients.
Yeah, and Alberto too, I would say, going back to doing pro bono work, find some companies that you think you could offer your services to and reach out to them, send them an email, say, hey, depending on what type of writing you're interested in, maybe they need somebody to manage their blog. Maybe you can write the blog post for them. Maybe they need somebody to, create some marketing materials for them, and you can offer your services. So I would start there too. I think that's a good way to get going, and
do a lot of work. I can't stress that enough. Just keep
and then
going.
Share it.
Yeah, and share it.
So the next question I see here from Liz: any resume advice? So yes, I think that, in today's day and age, I think what I would recommend is also creating a website for yourself where you can show off, what it is that you do, your portfolio of work, and share that link with people. I think, for your resume, you definitely want to put any jobs that you've had, put your background at Stetson on there.
Wix and Squarespace are good if you're looking to make a site. I would recommend those two. Also, resume advice, or if it's in a creative field, I would suggest taking a little liberty to be creative. For instance, if you go to my site, you could see it's a white collared shirt with a "Hello, my name is," kind of Jake Broselle. So it's just a little kind of something to maybe get yourself noticed if you're in a creative field.
And your follow-up question here, did we have involvement at Stetson that really helped us gain experience, clubs, organizations, classes? I did do an internship with the Museum of Art and worked with the art department and did a lot of kind of pro bono work to help with their marketing and PR starting out. So I think those were good organizations that I was involved with at Stetson.
I like the entrepreneurship classes at Stetson. I'm not sure if Andrews is still there, but those were great. I think just to get if you want to start a business, essentially freelancing is very entrepreneurial. So
yeah. And then our next question, is there any way to get the presentation emailed to us? Love to go back through. Yes, you will be able to get that emailed.
Michelle, the 4 questions under Find Your Why.
Yeah, the 4 key questions under Finding Your Why. So number 1, what makes you come alive? Number 2, what are your strengths? What are your innate strengths? What are you good at? Number 3, where do you add the greatest value? And number 4, how will you measure your life? Let's see what other questions we have.
Some of the most creative freelance careers you've come across throughout your travels.
What are some of the most creative freelance careers we've come across throughout our travels? People are getting really creative out there. I mean, the obvious ones are photographer, writer, editor, developer.
There's a lot of coders and developers or people that have an app. Social media management is another big one.
Consulting, kind of marketing, PR, public relations work, a lot of people in that field. And then there's kind of these hybrids of people. I think that's where we've seen creativity is freelancers who are offering, an array of those things. So whether it's, they offer copywriting, photography, and marketing services, I think people are getting creative with how they kind of wear many hats.
But I would also recommend to not wear all those hats starting out. Like kind of pick one thing you do really well and then be the best at that and do that. And then you can kind of upsell into those other services as you build those relationships. So any advice for, next one we have Mackenzie, any advice for creating an effective and creative portfolio? You want to take this?
Yeah, I think something that always helped me when I was building my website and building my portfolio was looking at other, peers or photographers in the industry that I really admired and seeing how they structured their portfolio. There's a lot of travel photographers that I admire and I always, follow their work. And when I was first starting out, I would look and see, how were they building their portfolio? So I would, whatever industry it is that you're interested in, I would find the people that you most admire in that industry and look at how they're presenting themselves. I think that's a great way for you to, effective way for you to create your portfolio.
And on that note, I think, look up people that are doing what you want to be doing right now, even just for a portfolio, but just for guidance, just for, what are they doing? What are they consuming? Where are they hanging out? Everything that we want to do or have done, there's already a foundation of people probably doing it. So, they can be some of your best teachers, people that are, doing it, and don't be scared to reach out to them and ask for advice. So.
Yeah, and creative wise, take a look at Jake's resume. It's super creative. I think there's a lot of ways that you can be creative with how you show off your portfolio or your resume. So have fun with it. And next, do you need expensive equipment to start as a freelance photographer? Definitely not. I started out with my iPhone as my first camera.
To be honest, her first camera, the new iPhone, is probably better than her first camera was.
Yeah, the technology
came so fast.
Is changing really quickly.
And we've met people in kind of, I think it was Portugal. Remember, a girl, she managed this company's all their social presence with her iPhone. That's all
Mhm.
she did. So
Yeah.
I would say, you don't, but again, Carley has taken a million photos, and some of them are not that great, but as you can see, you're going to get those kind of gems in the rough. So
Yeah. So I
just
think,
start somewhere is
yeah,
best advice.
yeah, I don't think you need expensive equipment. I think you need good taste. You need an eye, and you can, train your eye by doing a lot of work with whatever resources you have available, whether it's an iPhone or, you're starting out with a digital camera.
The Nikon 3200 is a good introduction camera. They're, I think, a couple $100, and it is a DSLR if you're a
Yeah.
starter. So.
All right, John.
All right, hold on. We missed this
How
one.
did what?
We missed Hannah.
Oh,
What if
sorry,
someone
Hannah.
has already started to make their own brand or company, and it was starting off great, but has become a little stint? What do you suggest to do?
Great
So
question.
yeah, your brand or company is starting great, but is a little stagnant. I guess it depends. Maybe if it's a full digital space, or if it's local.
I would say kind of reinvent the branding, reinfuse some creativity with the brand. A lot of times companies will, update their website, take new photographs. Maybe there's things that you can do to kind of breathe new life into the company that are going to get attention.
Another idea, maybe reach out to your past customers and why they worked with you, and maybe why they aren't now, or maybe what you could offer that they would, what you could do differently to maybe keep them, or to, what they were most attracted. Like, your best advice is going to come from people you've worked with. So I would say reach out to them and say, just like, yeah, why? What could I do better? Or what would you like to see in the future that would keep you coming back? Just ask for that real world feedback, and don't take it personally. Just you got to take criticism and feedback, and adapt what they say. And just also other competitors doing what you want to do, see what they're doing, and see if you can one up it. So
yeah, and whether you're B2B or B2C, maybe there's something you can offer your customers to kind of entice them and get them excited again. Maybe it's a promotion, maybe you're offering a webinar. Think of things that you can offer them that might help kind of breathe some new life into it.
Totally.
So John's question, how did we meet? I know people that are nervous about taking career jumps often benefit from having someone else working in a similar field. Holding each other accountable is a big one from having another person close by. Thoughts?
I think that's you hit the nail on the head there, John, because I think it is easier when you do have an accountability buddy system, and it doesn't necessarily have to be someone you're always with, like maybe a family member, having a weekly, call check-in, just say, hey, did you do what you said you were going to do last week? And that can be huge.
Yeah.
But we actually met at Stetson. She was a year older, robbed the cradle, and then we kind of kept dating after, right after I graduated in Orlando, and then we moved to LA together, and the rest is kind of history. So.
Yeah, and you don't necessarily have to have a partner with you to take a jump. I mean, we have a lot of freelance friends that are in the freelance world that are going at it solo, but I will just remind you to create and join those communities, and then you won't feel so alone, and you'll be able to benefit from having that community around you. When we were living in Los Angeles, we had such a great community of other creative freelancers to inspire us.
Like, going for crazy ideas. And that's a great piece of tips. Like, don't surround yourself with naysayers. If you want to do something that's a little kind of out of the norm, or what people around you are used to, they're probably going to, discourage you or say, oh, well, good luck with that. And, finding those people with a similar mindset, like, giving you lifting you up rather than holding you back is important. So definitely find those people.
Yeah.
Alberto, we have.
Are there specific spaces that you suggest to go to in order to network or even find a liaison? Specific spaces. So I would, for networking, I think it depends on your industry. So figure out, what your industry is that you're interested in, and then narrow it down into whether you're, literally Google, these groups on Facebook or on Reddit. You can do a lot of research online. There's so much information out there. You can Google digital nomad support groups, and a lot of information will come up.
Also, don't rule out just going to like keeping it local. I know in LA there was like a Y2K or something along those lines, like basically young professionals meeting up in the local area. I think that's a great way to just kind of, have that face to face and see if there's ways you can help them down the road or they could help you. So, don't be scared to look within kind of your community you're in and
look at Stetson. I mean,
yeah,
we
for sure.
Still like really appreciate the Stetson community, and alumni community has been really great for us. So
we've got a lot of very close friends because it is a smaller school. So I think, definitely leverage those networks that you're already a part of, I guess. So
yeah.
Isabella, what software do you use to edit your photos, store them?
What software do I use to edit my photos and store them? So the two main softwares that I use are both Adobe programs. I use Adobe Lightroom and Adobe Photoshop. Those are the key editing software programs that I use, and I store them on external hard drives. I have one right here, so I'll show you. This crazy looking thing is my one of many external hard drives. So
she's got like 20 of those.
I store all my photos on these and back them up. I don't store them on my computer because my computer would just crash and run out of memory after a few photos, especially because I shoot in RAW format, so the file sizes are really large. So get yourself a digital or a external hard drive to store photos. And there's also a lot of great apps that I use to edit photos on my phone. Snapseed is one that I use a lot. Visco or VSCO is another app I use a lot. There's so many great editing apps on your phone that are fun to play around with. So for anyone interested in photography, and also apps to help you create kind of graphics. If you aren't trained in graphic design, there's a lot of really great tools for you to learn graphic design. Canva is a great, very user-friendly way for you to create little promotional things, because like we said, if you're a freelancer, you're wearing every hat, so you have to market yourself too, and you're going to have to create different marketing materials. So that's another kind of side note.
Got a Canva fan out there.
Yeah. How did I learn to use the Adobe software? I'm wanting to learn, but I'm looking for good platforms. A great way that I learned, because I am all self-taught, was Skillshare. Skillshare offers specific classes on Adobe software programs, and I watched a lot of YouTube videos.
It depends to whatever you probably know what you learn best. She's a very visual learner, so I think a lot of videos and Skillshare is great. There's also, I don't know if they do, but Masterclass and Coursera are two others that have a ton of courses. And
there's a lot of great online courses going on right now. A lot of them free. So also, if there's photographers or people in your industry that you follow, a lot of them offer workshops. So sign up for those. Those can be really helpful. Let's see. One more question. How do you both stand out in your specific field? That's a great question. And I think it's so important to remember that, as a travel photographer, there's a lot of people in the industry, and there's a lot of competition. And so for me, one way that I've stood out is by creating a unique vision and a unique voice, a unique, aesthetic for my photography. So whether it's the tones that I use, whether it's the composition. So for me, I am drawn to more minimal compositions and more muted kind of pastel tones. And so I think creating this visual aesthetic has made me stand out in my field. And that's been really successful for me. And
I guess for me, it's been more just kind of being a little out of the box creatively, and just kind of bringing new ideas to the table all the time. It's as a copywriter especially, I think that'll just help. And I'm kind of a goofball, so maybe that I'm fun to work with. I've actually worked with people where they just say being really good at what you do is great, but another big piece is also just being like, if you're fun to work with, if you're on time and get it done, and also just not like a mean, or don't be a jerk. Like no one likes to work with a jerk. So
be fun, be relatable,
be human. Don't be I know in the office everyone thinks you got to be so this, but don't be a robot. Be yourself, and I think that'll be the best way to stand out. So.
Yeah, and one more question from John. Jake, can you elaborate further on how you became a more polished writer?
Oh, all right. So I was not an English major, but I did start as an English major. But when I got to Stetson, I was, young and dumb, and I changed to business because it was easier. So I took some UCLA classes on marketing and advertising writing. And for me, I was very lucky because my first project manager, she was an English major and had her master's. So she was like such a grammar Nazi, and it was great because, I picked up a lot from her and learned really well. But to be honest, I must say too, if you are looking to get into maybe a marketing writing field, I would suggest not always kind of sticking so much to the rules. I think one way that I did stand out is I wasn't, so classically trained and always approaching it with like, all right, here's the rules before here's what you want to write. I would say just kind of write and get it out, and then, make the rules apply after. So that's kind of, if you want to do novels or something else, I wouldn't suggest going the regular route. So.
Casey, just looked at your Instagram photos. Thank you, Casey.
Yeah, and thank you.
And
thank you, Yasmin, too. That's very kind. We, if you ever find yourself in LA, we'll hopefully be back there soon, or, around the world. Don't be shy.
Yeah, reach out to us. We're now part of your tribe.
Yeah, exactly. So
feel free to reach out, ask us any more questions that you might have.
Help however we can.